In this video, I will present my rationale for both my contextual and philosophical choices in regards to my pedagogical application in the classroom in three main categories: student-centered and student interest, a rationale of praxilism, and critical theory as a means of assessment. Music curriculums focused solely on the classics, for example, Bach, Beethoven, Brahms, create a disconnect between the musical world in which my students are situated and the musical experiences that they participate in within the school system. My particular curriculum tends to deal a lot with popular musical styles. Herbert and Campbell state that popular music has a pervasive and undeniable influence on the daily life of young people. It may be among the most powerful discourses to students as a means by which to construct personal identity and interpret social experience. Technology is also important to the idea of student-centeredness and student interest because it pervades our society. That being said, it should be implemented in ways that teach students how to actually create their own music instead of using simply loop-based compositions. Moving on to my rationale of praxilism in my theory. And again, in large part, my rationale is really a condemnation of the aesthetic philosophy and shows how the aesthetic philosophy really cannot work within my curriculum. The aesthetic philosophy essentially came about as a means to justify itself within public schooling. It attempted to rationalize itself by saying that teaching students to listen to and appreciate the classics will create a more civil and moral student body who will grow up to be more productive members of society. That being said, the aesthetic philosophy creates a gross power differential in the classroom in which students are subjugated to the role of learner and are no longer seen as equals in the education process with the teacher. Lastly, I'm going to talk about authentic assessment strategies and how they relate to critical theory and praxilism. Again, authentic assessments seek to evaluate student achievement through tasks in which students are actively engaged. Authentic assessments provide the students with a more comprehensive connection between the school curriculum and the reality in which they live. Eliot posited that the primary function of assessment in music education is not to determine grades, but rather to provide meaningful feedback to students about their musicianship skills. Wiggins also introduced the idea of educative assessment, which is found within my curriculum. Educative assessment is an open model of assessment that clearly articulates to the students the guidelines of what is being assessed. This type of assessment strategy aligns with the principles of critical theory and the praxis of philosophy by having students assessed and evaluated in situated, real-world musicking opportunities. Lastly, these types of assessments tend to be more complex and rigorous and show more of the student's ability than traditional forms of assessment that might deal with something like multiple choice questions. Again, my rationale for this curriculum is really down to three particular sections: student-centered and student interest, my rationale of the praxis of philosophy, and critical theory as a means of an authentic assessment. Thank you very much, and I hope you enjoyed this video.